Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tommy Ellison, and you are on CETA and my Southern expressions. Just good old phrases and words that come from the Deep South, and we've been looking at these every month, or every week, I should say. Actually, I should say every day, because that's closer to the truth. Nevertheless, I'm glad you joined me today, because this is episode 30, and we will be, of course, dealing with our final expression of the day today, and that would be the expression dealing with the letter Z. Z. And I promised you it was going to be a doozy. Well, it kind of is, because, well, it's the last letter. And, of course, this being the last episode, it's somewhat bittersweet. I wish our alphabet had more letters. Or, well, actually, I wish April had more days, or just a combination of the two. Nevertheless, let's get into it and look at letter Z. And let me see if this mic is just a tad too hot for you, folks. Let me get that back down just a bit. Just a bit. Just a bit. Just a little in the yellow. All right, let's look at that letter Z. In fact, the expression that comes to us today using the letter Z is the phrase, catching some Z's. Anybody know what that means? I've heard it all my life. And especially in college, when we would have 8 o'clock classes and my roommate would roll me over and say, "Wake up, Tommy, you got to go to class." And I'd say, "Man, I got to catch some more Z's. I can't make it today," which is probably why I had so many incompletes on my permanent record when I got out of college. But nevertheless, we're going to be looking at the phrase catching some Z's. Now, you know, it means sleeping. And of course, if you look up some of the synonyms of sleeping, you'll see words like comatose. That kind of describes my 7:30 day on a college career. Dormant, probably another good one. Conked, as in conked out, catching some Z's. Or he crashed on my couch. He's catching some Z's. Or he's dozing. These are all words that you've probably heard before. And of course, you know, if you're catching Z's or dozing or crashed on the couch, you're probably dreaming, right? Well, they continue. You can go about getting some shut-eye, or maybe hibernating. That's a good one. Big old bear hibernating. Or in dreamland. Or in repose, or just plain old inactive. Not too sexy there of a word, but you know, it works. Inert, that's kind of funny. Well, he was like an inert mineral on the periodic table chart. Inert. Or napping, another one you've probably used before. Or just the one simple 3-letter word, out. Or out cold, that's more like a prize fighter. Or out like a light, again, more like a prize fighter. Or he's out of it, which maybe best serves a mental condition. That man is out of it. Well, or reposing, that sounds like something we'd find in Shakespeare. Or, hey, resting. Sacked out, sleeping, slumbering, snoozing, taking 40 winks. Or the one that I'm interested in the most today, snoring. Because you see, snoring is really where the Cuttin'Z term originated. People needed to find a word that would best describe someone at sleep and someone snoring. So they said, well, wait a minute, why don't we imagine the buzzing sound of a chainsaw? Put that in your mind mentally without seeing that taking place, but just that chainsaw and that high-pitched buzzing that you hear, you know, as you saw off logs. And sometimes catching Z's and sleeping and sawing logs are all basically synonyms of the same thing, just taking a little snooze. But sawing logs is really more of a slang term for snoring. And of course, if you're snoring, it kind of sounds like Z. Z. And apparently a lot of other people thought that too. In fact, some of the cartoonists would actually picture a saw and a log superimposed over any one. These two guys, I'm not even sure what those are, rats or mice or two unidentified animals snoring in the bed. And of course, to help identify the fact that they are actually sleeping, the artist used a sawing log. I guess they were Cuttin'Z's, right? Well, in fact, if you go back in your history, you'll see some old political cartoons where, again, sleeping was represented by the use of a series of Z's. And in fact, this particular ad or cartoon rather, came from the old Katzenjammer Kids. And you've got to be old to remember that cartoon because it first appeared in 1903 in the daily papers. Katzenjammers and the sleeping captain snoring, cutting some Z's. In fact, we even have that today, you know, in our political arena. We have situations where even our current president has been caught with his eyes closed, like the one when he was dealing with Naftali Bennett, the Prime Minister of Israel, and he was actually appeared to be asleep. And I'm not going to show the picture of it, but this was just a tweet that came in over one of the Twitter accounts, and it was asking the question, you know, was he asleep or was he not? One guy says his eyelids were twitching, and one says, well, he was not snoring for sure, and there were no Z's over his head. It's a fake snooze. That was in September 5, 2021 on the J-Wire blog where that appeared. And so there you have it. Cuttin'Z's, just kind of a representation using language to represent snoring. What do you think? Well, I guess the good news and bittersweet moment is that the letter Z is the last letter of the alphabet. There are no more. And of course, this is the last episode of CETA because this is the last day of the month. We were creating every day in April. Now, you're welcome to watch the replays. I hope you will. Be sure and leave your comments, and we would love to hear back from you if you find any of them boring, entertaining, or just controversial. I don't care. You can make a comment. Let me have it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our episode for the letter Z, the alphabet, and CETA. I hope you'll come see me in Alabama. If you ever come down, I'd be glad to be your host, your tour guide. I don't drive for Uber, but hey, you never know. But there's one thing I like to tell you as I sign off, as I have every day this month, and that is when you get to Alabama, come see me. Okay? Y'all come.